Assalamu alaikum and welcome everyone. My name is Ranya Shbeib. I'm president of the Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition. And this is our second part for foster care in Islam. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, we had a session that was about foster care recruitment, and we had a specialist from Children's Wisconsin. She spoke about how to become a licensed foster care parent. We also heard from our Imam, Ziad Hamdan, who talked about the great benefit and really reward in being a foster parent, and also the history of fostering in Islamic tradition. And we learned from Brother Will Perry from his own personal experience of fostering two sets of siblings and actually then adopting them until they became adults, which was just an amazing story in itself. So if you did not get a chance to see that, you can go back to Our Peaceful Home Facebook page and you will find that there. So definitely do not miss that. But we're really excited today because we have a wonderful guest with us. So for this second session, we'd like to welcome Sister Ranya Shbeib, who is the co-founder and board member of Muslim Foster Care Association, MFCA. She and her husband are both licensed foster parents, and they have 3 children of their own as well. She's fostered several domestic and refugee youth. MFCA was established to meet the growing needs of Muslim foster children and their licensed caregivers through education, support, and advocacy. Ranya also serves on the state of Michigan's Foster Care Review Board. As a board member, she regularly reviews foster care cases and provides an objective perspective to courts regarding the child's safety and care, as well as permanency plan. Ranya has a background in education and public health. Welcome, Ranya. We're so pleased to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and the organization. It's interesting because honestly, until we became to learn more about the foster care process, we really didn't know quite a lot about what Muslim foster care agencies there are, and we were surprised that there was this agency in Michigan. If you can tell us a little bit about that and why you decided to start it.
Okay, great. So in 2016, my husband and I had just become licensed foster parents, and we welcomed our first foster child to our home. And as we started our fostering journey, we immediately realized that it was something that a lot of people around us were unfamiliar with. And we realized that we didn't have the support that we needed to have a positive outcome with our fostering journey. And we knew that we needed to raise awareness in the community, and we needed to do more to support the Muslim kids in foster care and to support the families that are caring for the Muslim kids in foster care. So through our journey, I was fortunate enough that a mutual friend connected me another Muslim licensed foster family not too far away from us here in Michigan. And in my connection with the other foster family, we became, we really bonded through our fostering experiences. And she became my sounding board and just, somebody to talk to. And she would call me and we would check in on each other. And then through our conversations, we realized that if this is something that we were going through, then for sure other families were experiencing this as well. And we thought, we need to change this and make sure that families feel supported and the Muslim children in foster care supported. And that's when we decided to start the Muslim Foster Care Association.
That's great. That's, taking an activist role to when you see a problem and doing that. That's wonderful, and we need more of that sort of thing. I want to remind all of our audience members to please submit your questions in the comment section. And also, if you are wanting to learn more about how to become a foster parent, please indicate that in the comment section, or you can call our office, 414-727-4900, and we'll provide you all of the information that you need. I'm not sure, Ranya, if you are familiar with our organization, but one of our projects, we are the Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition, and one of our projects that we started approximately 3 years ago is Our Peaceful Home. So it's a family strengthening and domestic abuse project. And that's really, the idea of fostering wasn't quite on our radar, but as we saw more Muslim children, being taken out of the homes and being put into foster care. And when we realized that we were having difficulty finding Muslim foster care parents, that this was something that was really of concern to us because, some of them were children that grew up in families where even, their English was not that good. Some of them, had been coming from other countries. And so it was a culture shock. And so that in itself, of course, is difficult for the kids to be in a foster care setting that is not really aligned with their culture, So the question that I have for you is that we couldn't, there wasn't even a lot of interest amongst the Muslim families, and there was even some apprehension. So from your experience, why do you think that is?
Um, I think there's some anxiety when there's something that's unknown, especially when you don't have people around you to and to see it as examples. So, you have an idea of what it looks like. And unfortunately, it's still kind of a relatively foreign concept in our communities, which is unfortunate because foster is part of our faith tradition and really embedded in our sunnah. So I understand the anxiety. I mean, I had the anxiety every time I welcome a new foster child to my home. There's some anxiety because essentially you're welcoming a stranger into your home, right? A lot of times you know very little about the child before they come to your home. So there's always going to be a lot of unknowns, and it's only natural to have that nervousness. So I understand that. And what I would recommend people to do is try to connect with another foster family to alleviate some of that.
The last session we had our imam talked about historically the importance of fostering in the Islamic tradition and how that's really just been a central part of our tradition, and how we have lost it, particularly the immigrant experience, whether it's that simply because people are themselves, busy trying to establish themselves or whatever the situation, but it's something that has been lost. So when you want to encourage, Muslim families to get into the foster care system, are there stories that you share? Are there traditions that you share?
There's absolutely challenges to fostering, but I truly believe that if you want something with great reward, then you have to expect that there will be challenges. So there's definitely challenges, but the rewards far outweigh the challenges. To be able to witness the growth of a child in your by just providing that love and stability and giving them the attention that they need, and to see the growth that offers for the child is really wonderful. and to be able to see, like, the long-lasting effects, and hopefully it's something that, you've kind of added somebody to your family. This is somebody that, inshallah, you have a lasting relationship with, and you've really made an impact on their lives. And I'll never forget one of my foster daughters. Once, I saw her, she was making dua after she finished one of her prayers, and afterwards, she came up to me and she said, "You know what I was making dua for?" And I said, "What?" And she said, "I made dua," and English wasn't even her first language, but she told me this in English. She said, "I made dua that may Allah welcome you into heaven. May Allah let the angels welcome you into heaven the way that you welcomed me into your home as a stranger." And I thought, "Oh my goodness, if you can just keep me dua, in my family to be welcomed into Jannah, then that's the ultimate reward, inshallah."
Inshallah, inshallah. That's a
So there's the
beautiful.
rewards of, and then there's also the rewards of the akhirah, inshallah.
Mashallah, yeah, that's a beautiful story, and inshallah, Allah will bless you with the rewards, definitely. I'm not sure if you're aware, but Wisconsin is one of the places that has the military base where the Afghan refugees have been brought, and we have about 13,000 that are currently there. And we heard there are some unaccompanied minors. Some of them we heard were taken to or sent to Chicago. But we have a feeling that there are going to be more that are coming, or there are some that are still there. So tell us a little bit about, for example, the fostering of refugees. These are individuals that are coming from trauma situations. Not that sometimes the kids, anyhow, in the foster care system, the reason they're there sometimes is because of coming from trauma situations. But is there a difference, for example, between fostering someone that's coming as a refugee and has that status, or someone that was removed from the home, for example, locally? If you can touch on that a little bit, and then I have a follow up to that.
Sure. Sure. So going back to the Afghan families, being brought to the U.S., we, with Muslim Foster Care Association, our focus is on the unaccompanied refugee minors. So as well here in Michigan, we do have a large number of youth that are unaccompanied refugee minors from Afghanistan. And in fact, today I was meeting with some of them here in Michigan. Um, and we absolutely don't have enough licensed Muslim homes to care for them. There's such a shortage of licensed homes everywhere, not just in Michigan. It's a national shortage. Um, so there's when somebody chooses to become licensed, they can choose to become licensed for domestic foster care or refugee foster care. Now, there's only about 22 cities in all of the US that will license for refugee foster care. So, depending on where you live, your only option may be domestic foster care. We're very fortunate here in Michigan that we actually have two agencies in two different cities that license for refugee foster care. So, Michigan does get a large influx of the unaccompanied refugee minors. I'm licensed for refugee foster care. And the reason why my family chose to do that is because if you're licensed for refugee, then you can foster and refugee. But if you're only licensed for domestic foster care, then you do need additional training and some additional background work, some additional paperwork to be able to care for a refugee foster youth. Now, the differences are domestic foster care is really the traditional foster care that most people are familiar with. It's been near you in your area that enter foster care. They can age more up to 7 years old. There's boys, there's girls. And with domestic foster care, children enter the system typically for abuse and neglect. That's the majority of the reasons, but there could be a variety of reasons. There could be health reasons for the parents, or for whatever reason, the parents are not able to care for their children, and the children need an alternate care. With refugee foster care, the children are brought to the U.S. through the Unaccompanied Refugee Minors Program, and they are placed in homes that are licensed specifically for refugee foster care. Now, the journey for a refugee youth is typically a very difficult journey. And so typically, you will only see older youth, typically teenagers, that come through the refugee foster care program. Also, typically, they're boys, they're males. So there are some females for sure, but the majority of them do tend to be boys, and they tend to be teenagers, older teenagers. The other thing is with domestic foster care, the goal of foster care is always reunification with their birth parents, unless a judge has ruled that the parental rights have been terminated. And then in that case, the child can become eligible for adoption. With refugee foster care, the birth parents' rights are never terminated. And so the child is never technically eligible for adoption. So with refugee foster care, it's the children stay in the foster care system until they choose to age out between the ages of 18 and 21. So typically they're in the system for it's a long-term placement. Whereas with domestic foster care, you never know at what point the judge may rule that the child is to be reunited with their birth parents.
Thank you very much. One of the questions that I know some of it came up last time during our previous session, and I don't know that all of the questions were answered, but from your perspective, what is, there were some families that worried that, well, they just live in a small apartment or whatever, and they were informed that a child has to have their own bedroom, for example. But what are some of the costs that are covered, and what are some of the costs that are expected of a family that is going to foster a child?
So to be honest with you, the state tries to do as much as they can to care for the kids, but essentially depending on your lifestyle, how your family lives, you most likely will incur other expenses that are not covered by the state. So as a foster family, you do receive a monthly stipend from the state. And part of, the money that you receive from the state is to be used to cover the expenses of the child in your home. And that amount differs depending on the age of the child. If the child is an older teenager, then part of the money that you receive from the state needs to be given directly to the child as a part of their allowance. And that's for them to use as they wish. But I example, when, my family, we like to eat out every once in a while. We like to travel. We like to, do some fun things. And so depending on your lifestyle, you can't expect that what's given by the state will cover all expenses of the child. But I find the requirements, I feel, are pretty minimal. The process, people see the process as kind of intrusive because they do background checks, they check your home, they interview everybody in the home. You're required to do trainings. They look at all of your monthly expenses as well as your monthly pay stubs. But essentially, what they're trying to do is ensure that it's a safe and stable home for the child. So, yes, it can be intrusive, but it's done that way with a very valid purpose, I believe.
That's really interesting because I do recall that a few months prior to COVID, we had met with Children's Wisconsin, and we had met with one of the individuals that was going to basically explain foster care, and she came in with this huge list of things that needed to be done, and it seemed quite daunting, and it seemed like a huge process. But at the same time, I know that we felt it was a good thing, because we thought if it was, our child or somebody else's child that we knew, we would want them to be in a safe household. So
Right.
that would be really important to do. One of the things that I think sometimes uh, scares people away is, well, how do you know, the child that you have, that they're somebody that you want to have in your house, in terms of safety issues, in terms of, mental health issues, in terms of so many different things. How, are they evaluated? What is the situation? How have you had incidents where you didn't realize there were certain aspects, behavioral aspects, for example, with a child, and you had to work through that?
So as you're going through the licensing process, there is part of the paperwork that you fill out. There are pages of paperwork, of lists, of characteristics of what you're willing in your home of a child. So you can specify gender, you can specify age, you can specify anything you'd like, any kind of special needs, any there's a list of things that you can go through and say what you're willing to to foster, to have in your home. So that alone will really narrow it down for most people. Then you start getting phone calls when they have a child that enters foster care through the agency that you're licensed with. If there is a child that enters that meets the criteria that you've checked off, then you'll receive a phone call and they'll say, "We have this child. Are you willing to welcome them to your home?" And typically, you have to make a decision very quick as to whether or not you're able to welcome that child. Now, it depends how long the child has been in foster care. If that child is just entering foster care for the first time, then typically they're not going to have a lot of information on that child. They will know very little about them. But if the child has been in the system for a while, then they're going to be about that child. They'll be able to tell you some of their mental health background, some of the some of the information that they have from assessments. They'll be able to know more about their situation. Not the case for all children. Now, worst case scenario, which of course, as a licensed foster parent, you never want to take this route, but it is there to protect the foster families. Worst case scenario, if you have a child in your home that for whatever reason is not a good fit for your family, then you can give a 30-day written notice saying that the child needs to be moved from your home. And then the agency has to remove the child from your home and find another placement by the time those 30 days are up. But of course, we don't want to do that because we know that all children in foster care have been through some level of trauma. And part of that trauma is just moving homes, being
Mhm.
removed from their family's home. Every time they have to switch to another home, that's a new level of trauma, and having to familiarize themselves with new surroundings, new schools, new, you know, more change. Yeah, but that is there as an option, as a protection for foster families.
That's good to know. And I don't know if you know this, but I'm just curious. I know you can maybe speak for Michigan where you are, but do you have an idea of how many Muslim children are in the foster care system in Michigan, and how many Muslim foster parents there are?
That's a great question. So, we have anywhere from about 100 to 150 Muslim kids in foster care in Michigan. And that number fluctuates, especially now, since Michigan has recently welcomed some of the Afghan refugee youth. So I'd say anywhere from about 100 to 150. Now, as far as licensed homes, licensed Muslim homes, less than 10.
Wow.
Um, licensed refugee Muslim homes, I may be the only one.
Wow.
Yeah, there's not that many. We have had families that have become licensed, and then unfortunately they don't maintain their licensing, so they end up losing it. Um, Unfortunately, sometimes people will foster and then they won't renew their license, and that'll
Mm.
kind of be the end of it for them. And that's one of the reasons why we started MFCA is we want to support our licensed foster families so that they don't burn out, so that they can continue to do what they're doing because they do need a lot of support. So
Yeah,
we know
that's
that the vast majority of Muslim foster kids are placed in homes of other faiths. And
mhm.
so our job is making sure that regardless of where the kids are placed, that they can still stay connected to their faith community.
Yeah, that's troubling, and I think a lot of work needs to be done. What do you think that we really, as a community, what do you think that, for example, the mosques and imams and religious leaders and religious institutions really can do to just reduce the fear and encourage fostering?
That's a
Thoughts
great
on.
question. We at MFCA, when we initially started MFCA, the bulk of our work was trying to encourage people to become licensed because we knew that there was really such a need. And that's, where you can make the greatest impact is when you are a licensed foster family. Um, like I said, if the more examples that in the community that people, for example, can look at my family and say, "Oh, look at Ranya, she has 3 biological kids and she's able to foster," so it's doable. She's able to do it. So we need more examples in the community, and I think that our Muslim community is really wonderful at contributing financially, and we have very generous donors in our Muslim communities, mashallah. But this is an issue that we simply can't just write checks and make donations and and solve the problem. We have to be willing to open our homes, and we have to be willing to be uncomfortable, and we have to be willing to again, change. We live in very comfortable lives. Alhamdulillah, I'll speak for myself. I live a very comfortable life. Alhamdulillah, many blessings. And we have to be willing to have some discomfort in our lives, and that's okay. And it's temporary. That's one of the biggest challenges of fostering for my family was that I also have 3 children of my own. And that was really difficult for my kids because now they had to share their family. They had to share their mom and dad. And that's more difficult than sharing your home, sharing your parents, right? So that's definitely a challenge. And my kids would say to me, "Well, how come nobody else is doing this?" We would talk to them of all the rewards and all the benefits and, how great it is. And my kids will say, "Well, how come nobody else is doing it?" They're very perceptive. They know. So again, we need to be willing to accept these challenges. We need to be willing to be uncomfortable and realize that there's greater reward in it.
Yeah, with so many issues, and particularly refugees, and so many Muslim refugees in the world, if we don't step up to help resolve some of these problems, if we're just honestly just thinking about ourselves, that's troublesome. And I think that even for children, that level of discomfort, of that level of not, feeling that they're always entitled, that everything they want should come to them, the feeling of knowing that they can share, it's sort of like the
Absolutely.
like the
I mean, I
ansar and the and the.
absolutely. And I always say, I know my children went through difficulty, but I absolutely believe that these experiences will make them more compassionate and more globally minded as adults. And, again, I believe I'll speak for myself. that bubble, and I want to make sure that my children had experiences and exposure outside the bubble. And the best way to do that was to kind of burst that bubble and bring somebody into our home. But I absolutely believe that it will make them, inshallah, more compassionate adults. And yeah, and it's really changed their perspective. And I've seen that as I've gotten older, I see the change that it's had on them. And I feel real blessed for them to have experienced that.
Mhm. Do you have the children that you've brought into your home? Have they kept in touch with you? Those that were there for a while and then moved on, have they kept in touch with you, or do you keep in touch with them? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so that are able to keep in touch with us, yes, they have. And it's
Mhm.
really wonderful. I mean, for example, one of my foster daughters, she's older now, and we recently over the summer had her ktab in our home.
Oh,
And
that's
it was just such a wonderful experience to see, her growth, and now to see her, be able to move on and to be married and inshallah start her family.
that's
So
great.
yes, for the ones that we were allowed to keep in touch with, or,
Mhm.
the birth parents allowed it, then yes, we have been able to stay in touch with them.
That's great. How about
Yeah.
your children, as far as getting along with them? I know you said that they felt about having to share their parent with them, but did you find that some of them hit it off as being really good friends, for example?
Um, well, I have 2 boys and a daughter,
Hmm.
and so it's difficult, when I'm fostering girls, for example, then that's, the dynamics of that. So my boys not really, bonding, I guess, with the girls. It was a very different, experience. But my daughter definitely to have some bonding experiences with some of the kids. She was younger and more inclined to, play with them and bond with them. And even now, as time has passed and as we've, the kids have all grown, they still have that connection, which I think is really special.
That's really wonderful. One of the issues that comes up in the Muslim community, unfortunately, uh, you know, whereas sometimes people don't see the greater picture, and there's a focus on the fact that, well, if I'm a female, how am I going to have a male in my, house that's not related? Or if I'm a male and my wife has to go out and I'm taking care of females, that's not my, my daughter. That, because especially because as Muslims, we do have more traditional, certain specific traditions when it comes to genders. So, how did you navigate that, and what do you tell people on how to deal with that?
So yes, there's definitely some guidelines that we have to follow based on our religion. Absolutely. But those guidelines are not meant to make the fostering impossible. And I think people too quickly, will refer to hijab and say, "Oh, well, it can't be done then." And I like to use one of my friends as an example, since foster parent. She wears hijab and she has 3 boys of her own, and she has fostered boys, and she's able to do it. She's able to have certain rules in her home that the foster boys know that these are the rules, and she's able to maintain hijab in her home when she needs to. So it definitely can be done, and I think that if we continue to look at the prophet, peace be upon him, as our example, and look at the stories that are in our faith tradition, then we can see that fostering has been done and it really is embedded in our faith. And honestly, I think that Muslims really should be at the forefront of foster care. We should be the ones leading this in our communities, because it really is a part of our history.
Absolutely. And the other, thought that or question that I had is, we're responsible, not just to be concerned about Muslim kids, but all kids, because this is a sense of, all kids are special and all kids matter. Of course, I know that a lot of times Muslim foster parents want to focus on the Muslim kids because they don't have other options. You know what I mean? And they want to give them that the cultural families that do understand them. But have you fostered kids that are not Muslim? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've fostered, 2 kids that were not Muslim. Their birth parents were incredibly appreciative, would say such kind words to me that would literally bring tears to my eyes. And, again, I loved being that example of, we're a Muslim family, children of any faith that need a home. Um, so yes, I have. And what I tell people is depending on where you live, if you live in a very big Muslim community, become licensed, you may be waiting a long time if you're only willing to welcome a Muslim child to your home. So, the more you kind of narrow down what kind of a child you want in your home, then you may be waiting a long time to get that phone call. And the more you are willing to accept in your home, then the faster you're able to get that call of, a child that needs a home. And what I try to tell people is just, be open about it. Um, Another thing that people can do if they're not ready for long-term foster care, there's respite care, which is an option. So respite care is a very short-term foster care. It could be for a week, maybe 2 weeks. And so I always encourage people, become licensed. If you're not sure about it, start with respite care, and then you'll have a better feel for it, and know how you would like to move forward with your family.
That's wonderful. I'd like to just remind all of our viewers that you can enter your questions in the chat. We have someone with a tremendous amount of experience here, and I know that there have been so many people that have been waiting for this opportunity to ask questions of a Muslim foster care parent, and especially the fact that Ranya here is a founder of a foster care association. That's a tremendous, really a valuable gift to the community and something that is incredibly important. Anything else, Ranya, that you feel important to share about your journey as a foster care parent?
Um, Anything else? It really is a beautiful experience. It really is. The bond that you're able the kids is really wonderful. And that bond, that experience with the kids, it comes with challenges, but as you see the results and as you see how you were able to, inshallah, have a positive impact on a child, then it's so rewarding, and it's something that I really see my family doing for as long as we can. And, of course, I want to encourage other people to become licensed and to be able to have that positive experience. And and for those that can't become licensed for whatever reason, I would encourage them to try to find the licensed families in your communities and try to offer them some kind of support. Um, and know that this is something that's not going away. We're always going to have Muslim children in foster care, and we need to be prepared for it.
Thank you so much, Rania. This has been a wonderful session. Before we end, we'd like to remind everyone that Our Peaceful Home is having its second annual fundraiser this Saturday at 6:30 p.m. And we need everyone's support, so please do donate. Our Peaceful Home, our Family Strengthening and Domestic Violence project of the Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition is only completing its third year now, so it's a very new program. It's state funded, but as a requirement of state funds, we are required to bring 25% in as a matching donation. So we hope all of you will support it. We have had some tremendous successes, and most importantly, families in our community have found someone to lean on and individuals to support them in their time of need. So please do donate. We'll have a link in the comments section as well as on our website. And before we end, we'll air a short promo video for the fundraiser. So we hope that you will join us this Saturday. And Ranya Shbeib, thank you so much for joining us today. This was a wonderful discussion, and may God bless you for everything you're doing, and may you find that reward with you and your family. Thank you.